Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about my brand new campaign, Star Trek Adventures, and it is specifically the Star Trek Adventures campaign, Warp Onyx, Season 1, Episode 1, starring starring crewman third class from security Archibald. So crewman Archibald, all right? So that is the player character of the gold player, okay? That's a good question. So I think that Modiphius uses the term game master for the person who runs the Star Trek Adventures campaign. I do not use that term. I believe I am dungeon mastering this campaign. Wait a second, Scott. You can't dungeon master a system that's not Dungeons and Dragons. I can. So why do I consider myself dungeon mastering? Well, first of all, I no longer really attach the term game master to myself. I really feel it. I just get the ick about the term game master. It feels wrong to me at this point, and I really don't feel that I ever game master. I feel I dungeon master, and the reason why is everything I put into being the central driving force of a tabletop role-playing game, I learned from Gary Gygax, and I'm continuing to learn from Gary Gygax. The other issue is I never go into any system thinking that that's going to be my end system. Every single tabletop role-playing game system that I run, I'm always running it so that the next time I'm running Dungeons and Dragons, it's a better experience, right? And so I run other systems to be a better dungeon master, and I use my dungeon mastering skills when I run a system, any tabletop role-playing game system. So I am dungeon mastering this Star Trek Adventures campaign, and so I'm going to tell you what happened in Season 1, Episode 1 of Warp Onyx, the Star Trek Adventures campaign. We are starting in the Star Trek Enterprise world with Captain Archer and Tucker and Mayweather and Sato and Phlox and T'Pol and Porthos the Beagle, all right? And of course, Enterprise, the Starship Enterprise NX-01, right? And that really is a character, right? And so we are starting in episode 1 of the show, and basically at this point, Archer has told the Starfleet admirals that he will transport Klang, this comatose Klingon, back to his homeworld, right? And so they'll be leaving out of the solar system into the Milky Way and even beyond the Milky Way using the Starship Enterprise NX-01. This is quite literally the first Enterprise, right? And so crewman Archibald is assigned to the ship, and he is one of eight security on the ship. Now you're like, wait a second, only 8 security? This shocked me. It is 8. There are 8. And by the way, if I get any of this wrong, if my understanding of Star Trek Enterprise is incorrect in any way, please let me know, and I'll adjust it in, as I'm, doing this campaign. But and one of the great things, by the way, Memory Alpha, I think, is the site. There's this absolutely amazing, just encyclopedic site that absolutely defines everything in every episode of every season of every series of Star Trek. And so, but I got this information where the Starship Enterprise NX-01, it only had a crew of 83, right? And we really never determine if the crew has family living on the ship. Family living on the ship was really something very distinct and specific on Star Trek Enterprise Next Generation. But on Star Trek Enterprise, we really don't know if they actually had family on the ship, right? So there's only 8 security on, and they have to do 24-hour security. They have to do 24-hour security on the ship. So crewman third class he is on the security team, but he actually has a boss on the ship, right? There's a head of security, so he's not actually head of security. Also, just to be super clear, just like Worf was, actually, that's a good point. Was Yar the head of security and then replaced by Worf? I think Worf was there from the beginning. Regardless, this security person so the security team handles all security on the ship, all security on away missions, and has control of all the ship's weapons, right? Which I really like that, because when the ship gets into a battle, there's something for the security person to do. So really, really cool. So basically, the ship leaves, the Starship Enterprise NX-01 leaves Earth and makes its way to Mars. And so I don't know what inspired me to. I do know, actually. Let's talk about it. So Wil Wheaton, I actually really love Wil Wheaton as a person. I think I'm really kind of fascinated by his life, and I really enjoy him narrating books, right? And he narrates a lot of John Scalzi books that I really absolutely love listening to him, hear him read those books. And I don't know if John Scalzi's like, hey, you got to hire Wil Wheaton on all my books. It seems like that, but it's really nice. So I had Wesley Crusher in mind, and so I have the Starship Enterprise NX-01 stops on its first, official task. It stops to get a 15-year-old boy named Eustace from the space miners on Mars, right? And basically, the Starship Enterprise stops and sends a Danube class runabout shuttle, a runabout, to to this mining station that's in orbit of Mars, and they pick up this young man named Eustace. His mother is a cartographer on Mars, and the reason Starfleet is having them stop there is they thought that Starfleet had the most up-to-date maps out beyond through the Milky Way and quite a bit beyond the Milky Way, but they realized that's not the case, and that this Mars cartographer had done an incredible job of astrogation and had far better maps that could be loaded into the Enterprise's computer. But her ask to get these maps given to Starfleet was to have her son taken from Mars, where Eustace's mother lives, to Saturn, where Eustace's father lives, right? So the family has been apart for a long time. They go, Eustace does not want to leave, right? So he is actually put onto a shuttle and brought into a hangar bay. And at this point, this is the first time we see a decision made by crewman Archibald. And Eustace says, hey, so his shuttle comes into the hangar bay C on the Enterprise NX-01, and he says, listen, I don't want to be here. I don't want to go to Saturn. I want to go back to Mars. Please send me back, right? And crewman Archibald has been tasked by Tucker, and Tucker's like, we need these maps. Bring that kid and just take him to his quarters, right? And it's very important he is taken to his quarters. It's important that this transition happens, right? So right out of the gate, crewman Archibald is in this situation where he's being asked to transport a 15-year-old boy who does not wish to be transported, right? And so he says, hey, so first of all, he tries diplomacy, and he says, listen, I understand, but it's going to be okay. It's going to be, a good trip. So at this point, finally, right, and he said, and listen, your mother has fully authorized this trip, and your father has fully authorized this trip. Okay, and then at that point, the kid continues to resist, and crewman Archibald makes a decision and says, okay, I'm going to, physically carry him to his crew, to physically carry him to his quarters, right? So we make a roll using the attributes and using the disciplines, and then checking if there's a focus. And at this point, he gets significant amount of momentum. He has to pick the kid up, but then finally the kid is just like, okay, it's okay, I'll walk with you, right? And then, and the reason why was he got this momentum, right? So now Eustace is willingly going with him, and they go to the crew quarters, and Eustace is dropped off, right? Next, the crewman, so he goes about his business, crewman Archibald, and then he's assigned to an away team when they reach Jupiter, right? And the Jupiter is to get a frangel sphere, right? A frangel sphere. So basically, there are these boulders in orbit of Jupiter, and inside they have this super dense sphere of a metal that has never been seen on Earth, right? And there are scientists who have these ideas that these frangel spheres can be used for all kinds of different things, right? So crewman Archibald is sent with a team of 10 scientists, okay? That team is led by Lieutenant Corso, okay? Lieutenant second class, right? And then also, and she is medical, and also on the same flight is Lieutenant third class Remming, right? And he is an engineer, right? So they bring 2 runabouts, and they're going to get scans of the frangel spheres, okay? So they're going to get these scans of the frangel spheres, and they get, maybe a couple hundred kilometers away and they're en route, right? They're leaving the 2 runabouts, the 2 shuttles are actually leaving the Enterprise NX-01, and suddenly everybody's notification comes up on their tricorder, on their data pad, and it says promotion of Lieutenant Remming is complete, right? Now, the way it works on Starfleet, when you're offered a promotion, you can actually refuse it. You can say, I don't want that promotion. That's kind of interesting, right? But what he did was he actually delayed it until they were en route, right? And then now he's Lieutenant first class, right? And so at this point, he says, Corso, go unpack the boxes. I'm going to take over piloting the ship. And she's like, hey, Lieutenant Remming, I'm Lieutenant Corso. I outrank you. Get back where you were. And he's like, nope, my promotion just went through. I outrank you, right? And guess what? We're not going to do scans. We're going to take one of those frangel spheres back, right? So get in line and get everything ready, right? And so she's shocked, and suddenly everybody's very, all of the science officers. So there's a security officer, a medical officer, an engineering officer, and then there's 7 scientist crewmen who are there to do the scans, and they are very worried because there is drama, right? Because one, the mission has been changed by a new officer in charge, right? And this is right at the edge, right at the edge. So that is, that is season 1, episode 1, part A for Star Trek Adventures Warp Onyx campaign. And we'll be continuing this as we go. Thank you so much for letting me share this with you. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion about Star Trek Adventures Warp Onyx campaign. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider like subscribing and have a fetch millennium.